As I meandered through the local park, the melody of classic rock tunes filled the air from my headphones, creating the perfect backdrop for a carefree afternoon. The gentle breeze complemented the peaceful solitude I enjoyed after finishing a demanding coding sprint for an app one was developing. Working remotely offered its comforts, like the freedom to wear pajamas well into the afternoon without judgment. As I navigated a curve near the venerable old oak tree, my serene world was suddenly shattered. I collided with something, or rather someone, who felt as immovable as a brick wall. My phone soared through the air as my headphones were yanked from my ears. I managed a surprised gasp, mirroring the stranger's reaction. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," I exclaimed, scrambling to my feet and hastily dusting off my jeans. The brick wall turned out to be a young man about my age, with tousled brown hair and a reassuringly sheepish smile. He had already retrieved my phone and was checking it for damage. "No worries, but maybe keep an eye out next time you're jamming out," he joked, handing me my undamaged phone. "Thanks, and you're right, I was totally lost in the music." "I'm Cheryl," I introduced myself, still slightly embarrassed but grateful for his easygoing demeanor. "I'm Brian," he replied, his interest piqued as he glanced at my phone. "Seems like you have great taste in music." We both shared a laugh, and I noticed he was holding a frisbee. "Do you play?" I asked, pointing at it. "Yeah, I was about to start a game, but my friends bailed." "Do you want to play?" "Not really, but I'm up for trying something new," I said with a shrug. I had no other plans, and he seemed like good company. "Cool, I'll show you how to play then," Brian said with an infectious smile, sparking my curiosity about him even more. We spent the next hour tossing the frisbee and chatting about everything from our favorite bands to our jobs. It turned out Brian was an engineer at a local tech startup, which gave us plenty to talk about since we were both in the tech industry. The conversation flowed effortlessly, much like talking to an old friend. As the sun began to set, Brian checked his watch. "Are you hungry?" I was planning to grab a bite at the cafe across the street. "Want to join me?" I realized I was quite hungry. "Sure, let's go. But just so you know, if they have chili fries, I'm not sharing," I warned him playfully. "Ha, challenge accepted." "Let's see if their chili fries live up to the hype," he chuckled as we walked toward the cafe. By the time we parted ways, it was clear this wasn't just a one-time encounter. Brian asked for my number, and I gladly gave it to him, feeling that exhilarating buzz that comes when you sense the start of something special. After several months of dating, things with Brian were going wonderfully. However, like every romantic tale bathed in perpetual sunlight, there was bound to be a shadow. In our story, that shadow was Mary, Brian's mother. "So, you're finally going to meet my mom," Brian mentioned one Saturday morning over breakfast, his expression a mix of amusement and caution. "Just a heads up, she's pretty intense," he warned. "Oh? Like secret government conspiracy intense or believes in aliens intense?" I joked, trying to keep the mood light. "More like she reads your horoscope and judges your life choices intensely," he replied with a shake of his head, preparing me for an interesting encounter. Later that day, Brian and I made our way to his mother Mary's place, which looked like it had jumped right out of a glossy TV show, with its impeccable landscaping and an air of eerie perfection. Brian knocked, and almost immediately, the door swung open to reveal Mary. She stood there in a vibrant floral dress that seemed to declare her dominance over the household. "Brian, and you must be Cheryl," Mary said, sizing me up as if I were an exhibit in her personal museum. Come in, come in." Stepping inside, I felt like I had been transported back to the 1960s. The living room was a shrine to that era's decor, complete with a massive bookshelf brimming with astrology books and, believe it or not, a crystal ball perched on the coffee table. Without wasting a moment, Mary turned to me, her curiosity barely contained. "So, Cheryl, when's your birthday?" she inquired the moment we settled onto her vintage floral couch. "April 19th, I replied, slightly thrown off by her abrupt dive into astrology. "Aries, huh? She murmured, brow furrowed as she consulted one of her many books. "And Brian here is a Pisces. Not the best match, astrologically speaking, you do know that, right?" Brian rolled his eyes at me, an apologetic look on his face. Mom, come on, not everyone believes in that stuff. But they should, especially when it comes to important life decisions, Mary countered sharply, giving me a piercing look. You see, Cheryl, Aries are headstrong and impulsive, and Pisces are dreamers, sensitive. It can lead to conflicts, you know. I wasn't sure how to react to being analyzed like a character in her astrological play just minutes after meeting her. Well, we've been getting along just fine so far, I said, trying to keep the peace but also standing my ground. Mary hummed disapprovingly, her fingers drumming on her astrology book. We'll see about that. Life's not just about the good times, dear. The rest of the visit was just as awkward. Mary kept talking about ensuring compatibility and the dangers of retrogrades. It was almost surreal hearing all that came out of her. Brian was extremely apologetic as we drove home. Sorry about that. She can be a bit much, he confessed, clearly embarrassed. A bit much, Brian? She basically suggested we're doomed because I'm an Aries, I half-joked, trying to lighten the mood, though I was a bit stung by the whole ordeal. Driving back, I pondered over everything. Mary was definitely formidable, but I was not about to let her or her astrological chart steer my relationship. I liked Brian, and no cosmic misalignment was going to deter me. Fast forward a year, and despite all the astrological hurdles Mary tried to place in our path, Brian proposed. We were at our favorite pizza place when he nervously slid the ring box across the table. Cheryl, will you marry me? He blurted out, almost spilling his drink. I was so surprised that I nearly choked on my pizza slice. Hell yes, I exclaimed after regaining my composure. The restaurant erupted in applause, and there I was, crying, overwhelmed by the moment. Planning the wedding, however, was far from simple. Between drafting a guest list and selecting a venue, Mary's incessant commentary was the last thing we needed. You know, Cheryl, Mars is in retrograde around your wedding date. That's not a good sign, she cautioned one afternoon as we reviewed floral arrangements at my place. I rolled my eyes so hard they nearly got stuck. Mary's penchant for cosmic caution was becoming a real test of patience. Ignoring astrological signs, Brian and I set our wedding date based on the availability of our favorite venue, a place that held special meaning for us. When the big day arrived, it was perfect. Sunny skies and mild temperatures set the scene, and all our friends and family were there, enjoying themselves. Even Mary managed to crack a smile, though it seemed a bit strained. After the ceremony, during the reception, Mary pulled me aside. Her face was serious, echoing our previous conversations. Cheryl, I still think you should reconsider this union. You might be happy now, but what about when the stars shift, she warned. I had reached my limit. Mary, I'm married to your son now, and I'm not reconsidering anything. We're happy, and that's what matters. Her lips pursed slightly, and she scanned the room as if expecting celestial signs to intervene. You're ignoring the signs, Cheryl, but remember, I warned you.
Duly noted, Mary.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to dance with my husband at our wedding, which, by the way, is going wonderfully despite the bad signs, I replied, turning away to join Brian, who gave me a supportive thumbs up from across the room. We spent the rest of the evening dancing, laughing, and savoring every moment. Life as a newlywed felt like a sweet dream, but as with all dreams, reality has a way of asserting itself. Mary's relentless comments were that reality for me. Every visit seemed to carry the weight of her disapproval. One Sunday afternoon at her house, I hoped for a peaceful gathering, but Mary had other plans. So, Cheryl, she started as she served tea, still no good news on the baby front? You know, I read that some people are just cursed with bad energy. I nearly choked on my tea. Mary, really? That's not how it works. We've seen the doctor. Everything's fine. These things take time. Or maybe it's just not meant to be, she shrugged, sipping her tea as if she hadn't just suggested something so outrageous. Fuming but feeling Brian's hand squeeze mine under the table, a silent plea to stay calm, I changed the subject. Actually, we've been house hunting. Found a great place, and we're thinking of putting down an offer. Mary's interest was piqued. A house, huh? And how are you affording that? Brian's doing well, but houses aren't cheap. Proud of our independence and financial stability, I responded, Actually, I've been doing well with app development. We're putting in equal amounts. She set down her cup a bit too hard. Well, isn't that convenient? Living off my son, and now spending his money on a house, she scoffed. We left soon after, her words stinging. No matter how hard I worked or what I achieved, it seemed I could never change her view of me. The process of buying a house was a refreshing change compared to dealing with Mary. We found a beautiful place that was perfect for us and moved in a few months later. I hoped that owning our new home would prove to Mary that I wasn't the gold digger she painted me to be, but it only seemed to fuel her suspicions further. At our housewarming, which Mary attended more out of obligation than anything, she pulled me aside while Brian was busy with other guests. Must be nice, living large on someone else's dime, she remarked snidely. We both understand the situation, don't we? Just ensure he remains unaware of your clandestine adventures, she whispered, eyes darting around to confirm our privacy. I stared back, a mix of shock and indignation coloring my response. What are you suggesting? I have never been unfaithful to Brian, and I never will. How could you accuse me of such a thing? She simply smirked and walked away, leaving me to simmer in anger. Later, whispers reached me through friends that Mary was tarnishing my reputation, labeling me as unfaithful and a parasite on Brian. That was my breaking point. When Brian and I were finally alone, I aired my grievances. Your mother is spreading terrible rumors about me, Brian. I'm at my wit's end. Brian's anger matched mine. She did what? That's it. I'm going to talk to her. This needs to stop. He confronted Mary, warning her to cease her accusations or she'd no longer be welcome in our home. Mary reacted poorly to his ultimatum, accusing me over the phone the next day. You're trying to alienate me from my son, you witch. I know your game, bringing men over when Brian's not here. I'm not blind. Her words were intended to wound, but they no longer held sway over me. Believe what you wish, Mary, but if you continue this slander, you'll regret it. This is my home, and I refuse to be intimidated here. After we curtailed her visits, peace returned temporarily, but it felt like the calm before another storm. The unease began anew one day at the supermarket. As I loaded groceries into my car, a prickly sensation crept up my spine, the unsettling feeling of being watched. I scanned my surroundings and spotted a man at the edge of the parking lot, his gaze fixed on me. Although it felt odd, I dismissed it as paranoia. However, the feeling persisted. Days later, at a cafe near our home, the same man was there again, feigning interest in a newspaper but clearly observing me. My pulse quickened. Was I being followed? When I spotted him a third time, standing across the street from our house, panic set in. This was no coincidence. He was tracking me. That evening, I confided in Brian. There's this man I keep seeing around, and it feels like he's following me. Brian was concerned, but suggested a rational approach. Are you sure? Maybe you're just stressed. Why not take a few days off? Do some yoga, relax? Though skeptical, I agreed to try. I resumed my yoga and meditation, hoping to ease my mind, but the sense of being watched persisted. Finally, unable to shake my suspicions, I returned to the supermarket. As predicted, he was there. Confronting him, I demanded answers, phone camera at the ready. Why are you following me? Who are you? He seemed startled and tried to leave, but I was quicker, snapping pictures. I've called the police, I lied, provoking a panicked response. Wait, listen, I'm not here to harm you. I'm a private investigator. I can't disclose more. Later, in our house parking lot, Brian demanded the truth, physically restraining him. Talk now, or I'm calling the cops. Under pressure, he confessed. Look, I was hired by your mother. She wanted evidence of infidelity, but I swear I found nothing. There's nothing to find, Brian exclaimed as he dialed Mary's number. Mom, why on earth would you hire someone to follow Cheryl? Don't show up at our house again. You're not welcome anymore. The next day, Brian was a whirlwind of action, installing security cameras around our home. With stunts like these, who knows what else she might try, he said, his words tinged with frustration. After the unsettling events with Mary and the unsettling private investigator, Brian proposed the perfect antidote, a vacation just for the two of us, away from the turmoil. We found ourselves in a quaint beach town, surrounded only by the soothing sounds of waves and seagulls. It was the ideal retreat. For the first time in ages, I relaxed under the sun with a book, free from prying eyes or hidden motives. When we returned home, I carried with me a newfound peace, which only deepened when I discovered something miraculous. I was pregnant. After years of trying and enduring Mary's harshness, it had finally happened. But with the joy came a fierce protectiveness. Considering Mary's recent behavior, the last thing I wanted was to expose our newfound happiness to any risk. We chose to keep the pregnancy a secret, especially from Mary. "Let's just share this with my parents for now," I suggested to Brian, who was ecstatic about the news. "I don't want my mom's negativity ruining this," he agreed. "We'll announce it to everyone else when we're ready." Working from home made it easier to conceal my growing belly. I switched to looser shirts and flowy dresses whenever I went out, though there wasn't much to hide yet. I was past my first trimester, but surprisingly, there wasn't much of a bump. During a checkup, I voiced my concerns to my doctor, who reassured me with a smile. "Every woman's body is different, Cheryl. As long as the baby is healthy and the scans are normal, there's no need to worry." As weeks turned into months, the little life growing inside me remained a cherished secret shared only with Brian and my parents. We spent evenings in the future nursery, discussing and dreaming. "I think we should paint it yellow," Brian suggested one evening, imagining the room bathed in a cheerful, sunny hue. "Yellow's nice, bright and happy," I agreed, envisioning our baby in their crib against a vibrant backdrop. This little bubble of joy was ours to cherish, and for the time being, that was all that mattered. Although Mary's shadow loomed at the edge of our joy, inside our home, within our growing family, we felt secure. 7 months in, with my pregnancy now clearly visible, Brian and I decided it was time to celebrate openly with all our family and friends, even Mary. Perhaps, we thought, if she saw the beauty and reality of our situation, she might abandon her grudge. We planned a big celebration at our home, decorating the backyard with lights and flowers. I felt like royalty, gliding among our guests, Brian at my side. The air buzzed with excitement and congratulations from nearly everyone, except Mary, who arrived late with a stormy expression. I steeled myself for whatever she might say or do next. I had been hopeful that Mary would maintain her composure for the special day, but my optimism was short-lived. As I mingled with guests, Mary's voice carried over the crowd. She was audibly accusing me of a circle of relatives. "This is all an act," she declared loudly. "She's not pregnant. It's just a scheme to trap Brian and drain his finances." Her biting words were painful to hear, but I was determined not to let her spoil the celebration. I approached her, smoothing my dress and attempting to speak calmly. "Mary, could we talk for a moment?" I asked. She sized me up with a skeptical look. "What's there to discuss? You think you can deceive everyone, but you can't fool me." Taking a deep breath to stay composed, I replied, "I am genuinely pregnant, Mary. It's mine and Brian's baby. Can we put our differences aside, just for today, for the baby's sake?" Her response was a scornful laugh. "You're incredible. Do you really expect me to believe this farce?" Trying to avoid a scene, I persisted. "Mary, please. This is a time for celebration. Let's enjoy it." She snorted dismissively and walked away, heading upstairs. I hesitated, then followed, worried she might continue her slanderous talk. Upstairs, I found her visibly angry. "Mary, why can't you be happy for us? In a month, you'll see. There's going to be a real baby," I tried to assure her. She spun around, her eyes icy. "There is no baby. You've always been a fraud, Cheryl." Her words hurt, and I felt tears well up. "I don't understand why you're doing this, but it has to stop," I said, turning to leave. As I began descending the stairs, a sudden push caught me off guard. I lost my footing and fell, the room spinning as I plummeted down. When I regained consciousness, I was under the bright lights of a hospital room, surrounded by the beeping of monitors. The pain was overwhelming. Brian was by my side, his face filled with worry. "Cheryl, thank God you're awake. How do you feel?" he asked urgently. "Where's the baby?" I gasped, panic seizing me. Brian's expression grew even more concerned as he held my hand tightly. "They had to induce labor after your fall. He's on life support but fighting hard," he explained softly. Tears streamed down my face as I struggled to speak. "Is he going to be okay?" "They're doing all they can," Brian reassured me, wiping away my tears. The memory of the fall haunted me. Being shoved, the terror of the tumble, and Mary's face just before I turned to descend the stairs. "Brian," I said, my voice stronger despite the fear. Mary pushed me. "She did it." Brian looked pained and confused. "No, Cheryl. It must have been an accident." "It wasn't," I insisted, frustration mounting. "Please check the cameras." He nodded, standing with a heavy heart and leaving to check. After a tense wait, he returned, his face ashen. "I saw it," he said quietly. "You were right. The video confirmed everything. My mom pushed you," Brian said, his voice strained as he dialed the police. I caught only snippets of his conversation, his words short and his tone a blend of anger and disbelief. After he hung up, he explained that his mother was being taken into custody. The following days were a whirlwind. Our son, tiny and delicate, battled for his life in the neonatal intensive care unit, his small form enveloped by beeping machines and attentive nurses. I spent every waking moment praying, my entire being focused on the tiny, fragile life in that incubator. Mary faced charges, and a trial soon followed. Her defense was almost laughable. She insisted it was all a prank meant to expose what she believed was a lie about my pregnancy. "I didn't mean any harm," she protested in court. "I just wanted everyone to see the truth." However, the evidence against her was irrefutable. The video clearly showed her actions. The judge found her guilty, sentencing her to 3 years in prison and mandating restitution. The sale of her house was ordered to cover our son's extensive medical and rehabilitation costs. Time moved forward, and with each passing month, our son grew stronger. The rehabilitation process was grueling, filled with endless appointments and therapies. Yet he was resilient, gradually catching up to his peers. By his second birthday, you wouldn't have guessed he had such a challenging start. Through it all, Brian and I grew closer, our bond fortified by the adversity we faced. As for Mary, her actions irreparably damaged any possibility of reconciliation. Brian and I agreed that it was best for her to remain out of our and our son's lives, a tough but necessary decision for our family's safety and happiness. Now, as I watch our son, healthy, joyful, and bursting with energy, I feel an overwhelming sense of tranquility. It feels as though, against all odds, the universe has shifted to favor us. The ominous cloud that Mary cast over our lives has dissolved. What remains is the luminous path ahead for our small family, glowing brighter and more promising than ever before.